Worry is a subtle enemy. It creeps into the heart quietly, often disguised as care, responsibility, or concern. But deep inside, worry is more than just overthinking. It is a lack of trust in the divine plan. Every time we allow anxiety to dominate our thoughts, we are telling ourselves that we don't fully believe God is in control. We might pray, we might speak words of faith, yet if fear still rules our emotions, then our trust is not complete. Worry is not only draining, it's spiritually paralyzing. It blinds us from seeing the invisible hand that is working for our good. The truth is, no one can live without facing uncertainty. Life is unpredictable, and challenges appear without warning. But it is in those moments of uncertainty that our faith is truly tested. Anyone can trust when everything is clear, but real trust begins when nothing makes sense. When you look around and see chaos, when plans fail and doors close, that is the moment when you must decide whether to lean on fear or on faith. Fear whispers, "What if everything goes wrong?" Faith answers, "Even if it does, God is still in control." Worry comes when we believe we are the ones who must solve everything. We think our success, our safety, our peace depend on our own power. But faith reminds us that we are not the source of our strength. We are simply the vessel. When you trust that God is guiding every detail, you stop carrying the world on your shoulders. You begin to walk lighter, breathe easier, and see clearer. Your confidence shifts from your own ability to divine authority. It's important to understand that worry is not just mental. It affects every part of your life. It weakens the body, clouds judgment, and steals joy from the present moment. People spend sleepless nights imagining problems that never happen. The energy that could be used to grow, create, or love is wasted on fear. The human mind was never designed to carry such constant pressure. That's why faith is not optional. It's necessary. Faith is the only force strong enough to push out worry. When faith enters, fear exits. Some people think that worrying means they care. They believe that if they don't worry, they're being irresponsible. But there's a difference between caring and carrying. You can care deeply about your future, your family, your work, but you don't have to carry the weight of control. Caring invites prayer, but carrying invites pressure. Prayer releases, worry holds on. The more you worry, the less room you give for peace to work in you. The more you pray and trust, the lighter your spirit becomes. Worry also blocks your spiritual vision. It narrows your focus until all you can see are problems. Faith, on the other hand, expands your perspective. It reminds you that there is a larger story unfolding beyond what your eyes can see. When you trust, you begin to notice small signs of grace, small miracles, and unexpected blessings that worry would have hidden. Trust gives you the patience to wait and the strength to endure. It keeps your heart steady when life feels uncertain. Worry feeds on what if. What if I fail? What if they leave? What if things never change? But faith answers with even if. Even if I fail, God will lift me. Even if they leave, I will not be alone. Even if nothing changes today, I believe something is shifting beyond sight. What if creates fear, even if creates freedom. The more you feed your what ifs, the more anxious you become. But when you speak even if, your soul begins to rest. To overcome worry, you must replace it, not just resist it. You replace it with truth. You remind yourself daily that God's wisdom is greater than your understanding. You tell your mind that the Creator who shaped the stars is also shaping your future. Every time worry rises, answer it with faith. Every time fear speaks, silence it with trust. The voice you listen to determines the life you live. If you listen to fear, you'll always live small. If you listen to faith, you'll rise above circumstances. Worry is a thief that steals tomorrow's peace and today's joy. It adds nothing but takes everything. It doesn't change the outcome, but it changes you. It weakens your spirit and clouds your hope. The antidote to worry is not more control, but more surrender. When you surrender, you don't give up. You hand over. You hand over the burden, the confusion, the pressure, the fear. You let God do what only He can do. You may not understand how everything will work out, but you don't need to. The question is not how will I manage, but who is managing me. When you finally accept that the author of life is writing your story, you can let go of the pen and rest in his direction. Worry loses its power the moment faith takes the lead. Because faith doesn't promise that life will be easy, but it assures you that you'll never walk alone. Trusting God means surrendering control, and surrendering control is one of the hardest things for the human heart to do. From childhood, we are taught to plan, to prepare, to take charge, to make things happen. We are told that our destiny lies in our hands. But when you begin to walk in faith, you discover that real peace doesn't come from controlling life. It comes from releasing it. The moment you try to control everything is the moment you begin to feel overwhelmed, anxious, and afraid, because control is an illusion. You cannot control people, timing, circumstances, or outcomes. You can only control your response and your trust. When you choose to trust God, you are making a conscious decision to let go of your limited understanding and believe that there is a higher plan already in motion. Trust is not blind. It's a deep spiritual vision that sees beyond the visible. It's saying, I don't know how, but I know who. Trust doesn't require the absence of uncertainty. It requires the presence of confidence in God's character. You don't trust because you see results. You trust because you know the nature of the one who promised. God's ways are not your ways, and His timing rarely matches your expectations, but His outcomes always exceed them. Every detour, every delay, every unanswered prayer has a purpose that will make sense later. Trust is walking forward even when the road disappears under your feet. Surrender doesn't mean weakness, it means alignment. It means stepping out of the way so divine wisdom can guide your path. The more you try to control life, the tighter it becomes. It's like holding water in your hands. The tighter you grip, the more it slips away. But when you open your hands and let go, peace begins to flow again. Surrendering to God is not giving up responsibility, it's giving up resistance. It's choosing to believe that what He allows, He will also redeem. When you truly trust, your heart becomes calm even in chaos. Trust is not built in comfort, it is built in crisis. When things don't go your way, when you lose what you thought you needed, when doors close and people walk away, those are the moments when trust is tested and strengthened. God doesn't ask you to understand everything, but He does ask you to trust Him in everything. Even when it feels unfair, even when it hurts, even when you can't see the reason, He asks you to believe that the story isn't finished yet. Trusting God also means refusing to live by sight alone. Your eyes can deceive you. What looks like the end might be the beginning. What feels like loss might be divine replacement. What seems delayed might actually be divine timing. There are layers to life that only faith can see. When you lean not on your own understanding, you begin to notice how everything starts connecting. People you met by chance, moments you thought were meaningless, challenges that shaped your character, all woven together by an unseen hand. There will be seasons when trusting God feels impossible. You will question why certain things happen, why prayers seem unanswered, why pain lingers longer than expected. In those moments, you must remind yourself that trust is not a feeling, it's a choice. Feelings change with circumstance, but trust remains when you decide to believe regardless of how you feel. Trust says, even when I don't see progress, I know purpose is forming. Trust says, even when I don't feel strong, I know strength is being built inside me. Trust says, even when I can't trace His hand, I still trust His heart. When you surrender control, you begin to experience peace that logic cannot explain. You no longer chase outcomes, you align with purpose. You no longer panic over timing. You rest in divine rhythm. You no longer try to force doors open. You wait for the ones meant for you. Trust doesn't rush. It rests. It waits without fear, moves without doubt, and lives without needing proof. Trusting God also shifts how you pray. Instead of praying with desperation, you begin to pray with confidence. You stop begging for things to happen your way and start inviting His will to be done. That shift changes everything. Prayer becomes less about control and more about connection. You no longer pray from fear of losing, but from faith that what is meant for you cannot be lost. When you live in trust, you stop fighting battles that aren't yours to fight. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't understand your journey. You stop trying to make sense of every struggle. You learn to say, "God, I don't get it, but I trust you do." That single statement has the power to lift the heaviest burden from your soul. Trust is built daily through small acts of faith. It's built when you choose to forgive instead of holding grudges, to believe instead of doubting, to wait instead of worrying. Each decision strengthens the foundation of your faith. And as your trust deepens, you begin to see that surrender is not the end of control. It's the beginning of true freedom. The moment you trust that God is working behind the scenes, your heart stops racing. The need to fix, prove, and predict begins to fade. You realize that life doesn't need to go according to your plan for it to be good. It only needs to unfold according to His. And when you reach that understanding, you begin to live with a quiet strength, a strength that no storm can shake, because it's rooted in trust, not control. Delays, rejections, and silence are some of the hardest things to face in life. They make you question your worth, your direction, and sometimes even your faith. You pray for answers, you wait for doors to open, you expect movement, but instead everything stands still. It feels as if heaven has gone quiet. You begin to wonder if you did something wrong, if your prayers weren't strong enough, or if maybe God forgot about you. But what you often don't realize in those moments is that delay is not denial, rejection is not punishment, and silence is not absence. Every pause has purpose. Every not yet carries preparation. When God delays something, it's not because He's forgotten. It's because He's aligning the timing of your destiny. You may think you're ready for what you're asking for, but God sees deeper. He knows what lies ahead, what obstacles you'll face, what maturity you'll need. The waiting period is never wasted. It is the unseen classroom where faith, patience, and endurance are developed. In that waiting, you learn to depend on Him completely. You learn to pray without expecting immediate results, to trust without needing constant reassurance, to believe even when there's no visible sign of progress. Delay is the soil where deep faith grows. Rejection can feel like the end of everything you've hoped for. It stings because it touches the heart of human desire to be accepted, chosen, and validated. When someone walks away, when an opportunity closes, when something you worked for falls apart, it feels cruel. But rejection often hides redirection. What you think is the end of a chapter is sometimes just the turning of a page. God doesn't close a door to punish you. He closes it to protect you. He knows what you cannot see. Sometimes that relationship you wanted would have broken you later. Sometimes that opportunity would have taken you off your purpose. Sometimes that dream was too small for the destiny He planned. Every no from heaven carries a yes waiting on the other side. The hardest test comes in the silence. Silence from God is not easy to endure because it confronts your control. You want answers, signs, and assurance, but sometimes God's greatest work is done in silence. When you plant a seed, it grows underground, away from sight. The silence of the soil doesn't mean the seed is dead. It means something is happening beneath the surface. The same is true with faith. When God is silent, it's often because He's working in ways you can't yet understand. He's arranging people, events, and circumstances to align perfectly. The silence forces you to stop relying on feelings and to start standing on faith. It matures your spiritual vision to see beyond emotions and trust the unseen process. The reason so many people break under delay or rejection is because they confuse movement with progress. Just because things aren't moving doesn't mean they aren't growing. Growth happens in stillness. You can't rush divine timing. What's meant for you will not pass you by, but it will only come when your character matches your calling. Sometimes God is not changing your situation because He's using your situation to change you. He's shaping your attitude, healing your heart, building your strength, and deepening your trust. When you start to see delay as development, everything changes. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What are you teaching me?" You realize that rejection was never about losing. It was about being redirected towards something better. You stop fearing silence because you know silence means God is near, doing unseen work. You no longer interpret delay as neglect, but as divine preparation for something greater. Faith requires patience because promises take time to mature. Abraham waited decades for his promise. Joseph waited years in prison before reaching the palace. And David spent long seasons in hiding before becoming king. In each story, delay didn't destroy destiny, it defined it. The waiting shaped them into who they needed to become. The same is happening in your life. Every delay is forming resilience. Every rejection is building wisdom. Every silence is strengthening your spirit. The truth is, instant answers don't build lasting faith. If every prayer were answered immediately, you would never learn to trust beyond what you see. Delay stretches your faith muscle. It teaches you endurance, gratitude, and perspective. You learn that blessings received too early can become burdens, but blessings received in divine timing carry peace. Rejection teaches you to stop depending on human approval. It reminds you that you were chosen by God long before anyone accepted or rejected you. It teaches humility and redirects your focus from pleasing people to fulfilling purpose. Silence teaches you the beauty of stillness, the importance of listening, and the discipline of faith. It reminds you that your relationship with God isn't built on noise, but on knowing. When everything seems delayed, rejected, or silent, that's when trust becomes most powerful. Those are the moments that separate shallow belief from deep faith. Anyone can praise when doors open, but real faith praises when nothing moves. Anyone can trust when God speaks, but true trust endures when God is quiet. Anyone can rejoice in acceptance, but mature faith rejoices even in rejection. Delays are not detours, they are design. Rejections are not endings, they are redirections. Silence is not distance, it is divine intimacy disguised. The moment you begin to see every pause as part of a greater plan, you stop fighting the process. You stop begging for quick results and start believing in perfect timing. Because every delay is preparing the path ahead, every rejection is clearing what doesn't belong, and every silence is shaping your heart to hear the next instruction more clearly. Faith doesn't need full understanding. It moves one step at a time. Human nature desires certainty. It wants the map before the journey, the explanation before the experience, and the guarantee before the risk. But faith was never meant to work that way. Faith is the bridge between the known and the unknown, the seen and the unseen. It doesn't wait for everything to make sense. It moves even when the mind is filled with questions. You cannot walk by faith and wait for complete clarity at the same time. Clarity is a reward that comes after obedience, not before it. There is a part of life that can never be figured out through logic or planning because divine purpose is not always logical. There will be moments when God calls you to move, to speak, to act, to let go, or to trust, and your mind will resist it because it doesn't see how it could work. But that is where faith begins. Faith doesn't erase the fear, it moves despite it. It doesn't require proof, it creates it through action. When you step out in faith, you invite the supernatural to meet you where human strength ends. Faith lives in motion. It is not a passive belief, but an active trust. Many people think they are waiting on God when in truth, God is waiting on them to take the first step. The sea didn't part for Moses until he stretched his staff. The walls of Jericho didn't fall until Joshua's people marched. Peter didn't walk on water until he stepped out of the boat. Every miracle began with movement. Faith is not about knowing every step ahead. It's about trusting the one who directs them. Faith also requires humility because it asks you to admit that you don't have all the answers. The human ego wants to plan, control, and predict outcomes. But faith asks you to release control and lean into divine wisdom. It asks you to trade your need for understanding for peace in the unknown. When you stop demanding explanations and start accepting guidance, you open the door for miracles to enter. Faith is not about perfect certainty. It's about perfect trust in an imperfect moment. The path of faith is often not straight. It twists, turns, and sometimes seems to circle back on itself. You may think you're losing direction, but what's really happening is preparation. Each turn, each pause, each obstacle shapes your strength and deepens your dependence. You won't always see progress with your eyes, but faith recognizes that unseen progress is still progress. It's the quiet growth that happens in hidden places, the inner transformation that prepares you for visible success later. Faith also teaches you to walk through darkness without losing your light. Sometimes God will allow you to walk through seasons where nothing seems clear, where prayers seem unanswered, and where guidance feels distant. Those are the moments that define your spiritual maturity, when you can still say, "I trust." Even when you don't understand, that's when faith becomes real. It's easy to believe when the path is bright, but it takes true courage to keep walking when all you have is a promise. One of the greatest lessons faith teaches is that understanding follows obedience. You may not understand the why right now, but one day you'll look back and realize every step made sense. Every delay, every change, every redirection had purpose. God doesn't reveal everything at once, because if you saw the full picture, you might be too afraid to walk it or too impatient to wait for it. Faith is God's way of guiding you through divine mystery without overwhelming you with the full truth all at once. Faith also separates noise from direction. The world is filled with voices that say, "Wait until you're ready," or "Make sure everything makes sense first." But faith whispers, "Move now, even if you don't see how." Readiness is not a condition for faith. It's the result of faith. You become ready as you walk. Every step you take strengthens the next. Every time you choose to move without understanding, your faith deepens, your fear weakens, and your trust grows. When faith becomes your foundation, you stop demanding signs and start creating movement. You stop living by explanations and start living by expectation. You no longer say, "I'll move when I know," but instead, "I'll move because I know who leads me." The unknown no longer scares you because you know the one who holds the unknown in his hands. Sometimes you'll feel as though faith is taking you backward. The journey of belief is rarely linear. You'll face setbacks, disappointments, and seasons that make no sense. But those moments aren't mistakes. They're mirrors showing you how deeply you trust. Faith is not tested in comfort. It's proven in confusion. You don't truly know what you believe until you must act without clarity. Every time you take that step without full understanding, heaven takes notice. Faith demands patience because progress often hides behind process. You might pray for doors to open and find that the hallway is longer than you expected. You might dream of outcomes that seem impossible. But faith doesn't shrink in the waiting. It strengthens. Each uncertain step becomes a testimony of courage. Each unanswered question becomes a seed of trust. You don't walk by sight because sight sees the obstacle, but faith sees the promise. When you move one step at a time in faith, you start to experience a new rhythm of peace. You stop living in constant panic about the future, because you know the one leading you never makes mistakes. You stop rushing because you realize that timing is divine. You stop overanalyzing because you understand that not everything must be known to be real. You learn to live with open hands, steady steps, and a peaceful heart, knowing that every step of faith brings you closer to the destiny already written for you. God's timing is perfect, never early, never late, always right on time. Yet this truth is one of the hardest for the human heart to accept. We live in a world that moves fast, where instant results are expected, and waiting feels like punishment. But divine timing doesn't follow human schedules. It unfolds at a rhythm that often feels slow to our impatient hearts, but is perfectly aligned with what we truly need. When you begin to understand this, peace starts to replace frustration. You start to see that waiting isn't wasted time. It's sacred time, time where God works behind the scenes, preparing you and the circumstances around you for something greater than you can imagine. When you pray and nothing happens, it's natural to feel forgotten. When you dream and nothing moves, it's easy to lose hope. But faith in divine timing means learning to trust the pause. The pause is not God ignoring you, it's God aligning everything around you. There are people you haven't met yet who are part of your blessing, doors that aren't ready to open, opportunities that need time to mature, and even parts of yourself that must grow stronger before you can carry what's coming. God doesn't delay because he wants to frustrate you. He delays because he loves you enough to prepare you. A blessing that comes too early can become a burden. A dream received too soon can destroy rather than develop you. Timing is not just about when you receive, it's about who you've become when you receive it. You can't rush a masterpiece. Every detail, every color, every layer takes time. The same is true for the masterpiece of your life. There's a reason why certain things haven't happened yet. Sometimes the longer you wait, the more significant the outcome becomes. The waiting refines your character, sharpens your focus, and deepens your humility. You start to depend less on your own strength and more on divine grace. You stop demanding and start trusting. You begin to notice that every delay carried a hidden gift: patience, resilience, wisdom, and perspective. There are moments when you'll question everything. You'll see others succeed while you remain still, and you'll wonder why your time hasn't come. But comparison blinds you to the beauty of your own timeline. Just because someone else is being blessed now doesn't mean you've been overlooked. It simply means their season arrived before yours. God works individually, not universally. Your journey has its own pace, its own process, and its own purpose. What's meant for you will not pass you by. It's just waiting for the perfect time to manifest. When you trust divine timing, you learn to rest even when things don't move. You stop striving to make everything happen by your own effort and begin to let peace take the lead. It doesn't mean you stop working or stop praying. It means you stop worrying. You do your part, and then you let God handle the outcome. You learn to wait without anxiety and to move without fear. Every delay becomes a reminder that heaven's clock never runs late. What looks like a setback in your eyes is often synchronization in God's eyes. There's a deep beauty in divine timing because it protects you from things you didn't know you weren't ready for. Sometimes you pray for something that would have destroyed you if it came too soon. You might be asking for the right thing at the wrong time, and God, in his mercy, says wait. The wait is not a punishment, it's protection. When the time is right, the pieces will fall effortlessly into place. The doors will open, the right people will appear, and everything will make sense. Until then, your job is not to rush the process, but to trust it. You must also understand that waiting seasons are working seasons. Just because you can't see progress doesn't mean progress isn't happening. Roots grow before fruits show. The foundation of a building takes the longest to complete because it supports everything above it. Your foundation, the inner strength, faith, and patience God is building in you, is what will sustain the blessings to come. Without it, success would collapse under pressure. The weight is shaping you into someone who can handle what's next. Sometimes divine timing teaches you surrender through silence. You'll pray, but answers won't come. You'll seek direction, but nothing will feel clear. It's in those moments that trust must lead. The silence trains you to listen to faith instead of fear. It reminds you that God's hand is still moving, even when his voice is quiet. The longer you wait, the deeper your roots of trust grow. And when the blessing finally arrives, you'll know it wasn't luck, it was alignment. Divine timing also reveals that what's truly meant for you will never require forcing. You won't have to beg, chase, or manipulate. What's yours will recognize you at the right time, the right job, the right opportunity, the right relationship. When it's meant to be, everything flows naturally. It's not effortless because life still brings challenges, but it's peaceful because it's right. When you move in divine timing, you move in harmony with purpose. Faith in God's timing means letting go of your timeline and embracing his. It means trusting that he sees the entire picture while you only see a single moment. It means believing that when things don't happen your way, they're still happening the right way. The same God who placed the stars in their exact positions, who commands the tides and seasons, is the same God who governs the rhythm of your life. Nothing is random. Every second, every delay, every shift is perfectly measured. And when the appointed time arrives, nothing and no one can stop what has been divinely scheduled for you. True peace comes when you let go of fear and rest in God's plan. Fear is one of the greatest thieves of joy, stealing your calm and replacing it with confusion and anxiety. It creeps into your thoughts when the future feels uncertain, when prayers seem unanswered, and when life takes unexpected turns. But peace is not found in understanding everything. It's found in trusting the one who does. When you release control, when you stop trying to fix every outcome, when you stop replaying your worries in your mind, something powerful happens inside you. Your heart begins to rest. You begin to realize that you don't need to have all the answers because the one who leads you already has them. Fear thrives on the unknown. It whispers, what if it doesn't work out? What if you fail? What if you're not enough? But trust whispers louder. Even if it doesn't go the way you planned, it will still work for your good. Every fear you face is an invitation to deepen your faith. It's a chance to turn panic into prayer, chaos into calm, and uncertainty into surrender. When you make peace with the fact that you are not in control, you make room for divine peace to enter. Fear loses its grip when faith takes its place. The human heart can't hold both at once. One always pushes the other out. So often we live with a clenched spirit, trying to make life move according to our schedule. We hold on tightly to our plans, our desires, our need for certainty. But peace can't live in a heart that refuses to release control. The moment you open your hands and say, God, I trust you, you start to feel the weight lift. That simple surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means giving in to divine wisdom, to divine timing, to divine love. Peace doesn't come from perfect circumstances. It comes from perfect surrender. When you trust that God's plan is greater than your worry, you walk lighter, breathe deeper, and live freer. Life is full of storms that test your faith. There will be moments when the waves rise higher than you expected, and fear will try to convince you that you're drowning. But peace is not the absence of storms. It's the calm within them. It's the quiet confidence that says, even in this chaos I am held. True peace doesn't wait for the storm to stop. It believes that God is in the boat with you. When you remember that, fear loses its authority. You begin to see that your circumstances don't determine your peace, your trust does. There's a difference between temporary relief and lasting peace. Temporary relief comes when the problem is solved, but lasting peace comes even when it's not. You can sit in uncertainty and still be calm because your faith tells you that God's plan is unfolding exactly as it should. It's not blind optimism, it's spiritual assurance. It's knowing that even your pain has a purpose, even your waiting has value, even your struggles are shaping something beautiful within you. When your heart reaches that point of surrender, nothing external can shake you. You may still have challenges, but you won't be controlled by them. You may still have questions, but you won't be consumed by them. Peace begins when fear ends, and fear ends when faith begins. This is why trust is so powerful. It's the antidote to anxiety. The moment you stop fighting life and start flowing with it, everything changes. You stop seeing obstacles as punishment and start seeing them as preparation. You stop asking why me and start asking what is this teaching me. Fear keeps you trapped in yesterday's pain and tomorrow's worry, but peace anchors you in the present moment, where God's grace is always enough. To rest in God's plan is to live with open hands and a soft heart. It means understanding that not everything will make sense right away, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. Sometimes the unanswered prayers are the ones protecting you. Sometimes the closed doors are saving you from something unseen. Peace comes when you trust that God's no is just as loving as his yes. When you begin to see rejection, delays, and detours as part of the divine blueprint, your heart stops resisting and starts resting. You may think peace is something you have to find, but it's not lost, it's within you. It's the quiet voice that whispers, "Be still." It's the presence that fills you when you choose faith over fear. It's not dependent on success, approval, or certainty. It's born from trust that you are exactly where you need to be, that nothing in your life is wasted, and that God's hand is guiding every step, even when you can't see it. There will always be things that try to steal your peace: disappointments, loss, worry, people's opinions. But when your heart is anchored in divine trust, none of it can control you. You become steady, rooted, and unshaken. You no longer chase peace through external achievements or fleeting comfort, because you've learned that true peace is spiritual, not circumstantial. It's the stillness that flows from knowing you're not walking alone. The moment you decide to stop letting fear dictate your emotions and start letting faith lead your decisions, you begin to live differently. You begin to experience a quiet strength that doesn't depend on outcome. You begin to wake up with gratitude instead of anxiety, patience instead of panic, faith instead of frustration. That is the peace that surpasses understanding, the peace that fills your soul when you let go of control and allow God's plan to carry you where you're meant to go.